You'll be my forever friend. This love will never end. No, nothing can come between us. No, never with you.
The people who are false representatives, that's where they kind of exit stage left, because when it comes to the actual reality that you have to serve in a relationship, and that getting into like a loving long-term relationship is less about you getting everything that you want, and more about how you serve in the relationship. And when you have two people who are focused on serving each other, or as I like to put it, out serving each other, then that makes a great foundation for a relationship, a loving relationship that will last a lifetime. So in that chapter, I say that there are people that you will meet in life. And I put it in like 3 categories. And I said there are people who want to love, there are people who choose to love, and there are people who have the capacity to love. So I'll say that again. There are people who want to love, there are people who choose to love, and then there are people who have the capacity to love. And in the book, I break down the difference between those statements that I stated. And so the people who want to love are maybe the people that you find and they love the idea of being in a relationship, the idea of it. Like maybe for some of us, maybe Disney painted that picture, or the romantic movies that we've, seen, or maybe you had actually a real life couple that you admired, that you saw, from your perspective, how they expressed and shared their love with one another. And so that creates a certain idealistic, right, way that we feel like our romantic relationship should play out. But those people are only really in love with the idea of it. They don't necessarily, and so people can fall into 2 categories when it comes to wanting, right? Though it could be the people who are very fanciful about it, and maybe they are so love struck or wanting it so much that they don't necessarily tap into the consciousness that it takes, right? That you really do need relationship skills, and you need to develop yourself and all the work that comes with it. And so maybe they get tossed to and fro by, anyone who kind of comes in their vicinity, or maybe not anyone, but lots of people, where it's like, oh, you could be my potential partner, or maybe you could be my potential partner, right? Because there's no grounding. It's just a type of idealism that they have about it. And then there's another person who can still be in this category where they might want it, but the fear of getting hurt, the fear of, just not wanting to take the risk, basically. So then they just stay in the theory, right? It's just in their mental, but they don't have the wherewithal to actually get their, feet wet and dabble into it, to take the risk that comes with, right? Even if you are conscious, even as much wisdom as you get, it's still going to be a risk because you don't know how the other person, right, is going to respond and act. So that's the want to love people. Then there are people who choose to love, right? So that is the person who is, similar to the person who wants to love, and they, like the idea of being in a relationship, but they have garnered enough, strength to say, I'm going to go out and I'm going to do it, and I'll take the risk. It's worth the risk, basically, right? But this person doesn't really, either understand, maybe hasn't taken the time to see how the things or their conditioned behaviors, maybe their traumas from the past, maybe just understanding, right, the opposite sex and how they function, all the things that would help, right, to kind of pour into a healthy relationship. They don't really have those. They're not equipped. So they go out and they dip their toe in it, but because they don't have, right, and they haven't really given space to really truly build a relationship and develop a relationship, and put the effort in, to do what it takes, then of course, right, they either, right, hurt people, they pass on the hurt, they feel like they fail, and maybe they feel like they get hurt, and so then they might, still do it, but navigate the relationship world defensively, which then, right, is counterproductive to the experiences that they want to have. So that's the person who, chooses to love, but is not necessarily equipped and doesn't really have the capacity to do it. And then, of course, lastly, is the person who has the capacity to do it. And really, the only way to measure capacity is how you lovingly pay attention to yourself and others and what they do with what they have within every stage that they're in, right? So the only way to measure capacity is the test of time and change and the challenges of life. When they come towards you, how do you proceed? How do you persevere? How do you withstand? How do you grow through it, right? That's this life that we're living is what cultivates our capacity. So to put that in context with tonight's discussion, the way that I would say you can identify the difference between dating potential versus measuring capacity is, let's just say someone who's dating potential, and I think this is a real key moment of understanding that I think will help someone who feels like they have been kind of in a cycle where they've been doing that, is that when you're dating potential, if you're in a relationship with someone and there is a narrative, right? A narrative that you have placed in your mind, and we all know when we're getting to know someone, especially in those beginning stages when all of those, for women, oxytocin is going crazy, like all of the chemicals that are, helping us feel what many people would describe as butterflies in your stomach, feeling like this person is the one, and et cetera, right? You start to feel, emotionally attached, invested, et cetera, right? And so along with that process, there are stories that we develop, and those stories can come to fruition through hope, right? Of how we hope that the relationship will proceed, or the outcome of the relationship. Maybe you're hoping the outcome is marriage. Maybe you're hoping that this woman that you found is everything. She's going to be able to, add value to your life and pour into your life and bring, add things that you are missing. Right. And so those are good narratives. They're not even bad narratives. However, if that narrative that is strongly attached to a strong emotion, a strong desire, a strong emotional pull, if we take that narrative and make that narrative a monument, inscribed on our soul, right? And that narrative that you have blinds you from seeing what is going on in real time, right? Of what's really happening, like the functionality of the relationship, the true relationship dynamic. And we take that narrative and that narrative displaces the truth of what's going on, then that's dating potential, right? So a key part of knowing when you're dating potential is when, and this is the challenging part, because shifts in life overall, but definitely shifts in relationships, especially relationships where there is a strong emotional pull, those shifts happen they're so subtle. It's like you don't sometimes recognize that they're happening when they're happening, right? It's like the quotes that they say, like 20/20 vision, in hindsight, it's like you see clearer once you're kind of out of it. And so these shifts can happen very subtly. So at one point, the truth might have been right in the place where it belongs, in the center of your heart, in the center of your being, and then this hope that you have that creates a story, right? A narrative that really is attached to a desirable outcome that you want to experience in the relationship, slowly starts to take the place of the truth. And now that narrative is what is driving, either the person to hold on to the relationship, to hold on to what they believe that this person can be, instead of lovingly paying attention to what's going on step by step, process by process in the relationship, right? So that's the difference between dating potential and measuring capacity. Whereas measuring capacity, and let me say hi to Craig. How are you, Craig? Thank you for popping in. Don't know if you're still here, but thank you. We're talking about the difference between dating potential and measuring capacity in relationships. So feel free to offer whatever thoughts you have on that. So whereas measuring capacity is, I want you to imagine, and I'll use this metaphor, that you're in a relationship, and let's just say the person that you're dealing with, they have a shot glass of capacity, right? They have a shot glass of capacity. And what I mean by that is, like, let's just say you are lovingly paying attention to that person's consistency, right? There are certain areas that we will want to look for a person's capacity, right? So let's just take consistency as one, which is really important, right, in relationships. And let's just use that person said that they're going to call you, and they say they're going to call you, and you, right, just lovingly pay attention to the things that they say, their follow through on it, right? So let's just say they have a shot glass of that, right? So you guys are just getting to know each other. And let's just say the shot glass is just seeing if, there's consistency in maybe just texting, each other, or being on the phone with each other, right? It's not us getting together in person. It's not us, planning vacations and things like that. That would take more, right, effort and energy. It would take more capacity from you. So let's just take that shot glass, and then you see, right? You lovingly pay attention. Okay, that person said they were going to text me. Yeah, they did. That person said they were going to call me. They did. Even if it was like a short, hey, how you doing? It wasn't a long thing. And maybe you also go out and, right, which not maybe, you definitely should, if you are somebody who is in the dating pool and vetting a person who you think could be a potential partner for you, you definitely want to see how they are, right, with that same consistency amongst their friends, amongst their family, right? So you want to see and kind of allow them to show you, right? Because oftentimes dating potential also can show up where you're not allowing the person to show you themselves, because the narrative that you have in your mind is greater than, right, allowing space for true discernment to come in, because you've allowed this person to show you who they are, rather than you jump in and say something or do something that you hope will coerce this person to do what it is, right, to align with the narrative that you've already put in your mind, right? So let's just go back to that person. Let's just say the consistency is good and they're consistent with that shot glass. In life, if you're consistent with, right, the little responsibilities, the little things that God gives you to do, then what'll happen is when things are being poured in that shot glass, it'll start to pour over, right? Because the capacity level now is increasing. So then let's just imagine we put an 8-ounce cup underneath that shot glass, right? Because now it's overflow, right? So we need a bigger container, right? That's really what happens when you increase in your capacity. So now this person has a 8-ounce cup, right? So maybe the capacity now will grow to, maybe you guys are setting up, times to meet with each other, or go on, I don't know, outward, dates or things like that. And then you see how that goes, right? And how the consistency is with that, and the consistency of that person's nature and their character in other environments, right? So that's the difference between dating potential and measuring capacity, because someone who's measuring capacity is well, let's start with this. First of all, thinking about their own capacity, right? Their own capacity to be able to engage with, right, or harmonize with the person who's presenting them with the opportunity. So an example of that would be, let's say you're in the, dating phase, and you meet someone. Maybe there's a woman who meets a man who has a child already, right? And they're talking and they're getting to know each other, right? That woman would be wise if she says to herself, okay, I know I like this person. Maybe she likes the person. I know I like him, but do I have the capacity to step in the place if this was to, right, this relationship was to evolve, to step in the place of, okay, stepmom, and what does that mean? Or if there is where, many, I don't know, maybe some of you have on here dated people who have children, but someone who has a child, that child is going to take priority, right? Until the person who they are vetting to become a potential partner to them, they take that person as a husband, or or take that person as a wife. Then that person can take priority. But before that, the child has to, especially if you're just getting to know each other, right? So things like that. And I think oftentimes, because in relationships, it can be so where we're so focused on the object, the outward object, that we don't necessarily focus and lovingly pay attention to ourselves and our capacity and our ability. And you know what I mean? So that's an example of that. But measuring capacity just means that you give room and space and opportunity for that person to show themselves to you, so you can have an authentic space to discern clearly without your emotions that are attached to a certain narrative or a certain idea or a certain desirable outcome that you want, driving you and kind of interrupting that natural process.